church where my dad was a Presbyterian minister in Alexandria, Virginia, back in the 60s and the 70s, had a living nativity. And the living nativity involved all sorts of animals and characters, and so they had sheep, and they had a donkey, and they had the goats, and I mean there were all sorts of things in there. And then they'd have people, and they would enact the whole nativity story. And I invariably was always the shepherd boy. There had to be a shepherd boy who was tending to some of the sheep, and that was my job, was to tend to the sheep. And my youngest brother always got to play Jesus. And the irony being that my dad's name is Joseph and my mother's first name is Mary. So it's kind of funny that we had this experience, and this is for years. I mean, people would line up outside the church, and they'd have their hot cider, and there would be the animals, and they had the booming voice telling the story, and we'd all come in and enact it, and it was really terrific. It was a great memory of my childhood, doing these unique living nativities. And there was one kid in that church who drew a picture of the nativity for my dad. And my dad was looking at it and said, "Oh, that's great. You have all the characters here. There's Mary and Joseph and Jesus and the three wise men and the shepherds, and you've got angels and wait a minute, who's this big guy over here in the corner?" And the kid looked up at him and said, "That's Round John Virgin." The family Christmas concert is one of those great events that Choral Arts puts on every year. I mean, they have traditional Christmas concerts. I mean, as choral societies go. I mean, every choral society has to do some type of holiday themed event or Christmas event, and Choral Arts has done these wonderful Christmas concerts for decades, including the big gala benefit and everything. And 8 years ago, we instituted the family Christmas concert because we felt like, the littlest amongst us, they didn't have their own concert. They didn't have a special event. And so we created an event in which, for the first probably 2/3, there's a story that is told in such a way that kids understand it. Now, there are various levels of meaning within the story. Adults really get the meaning. Kids get sort of several layers of meaning, but the adults really get all the subtext that's in the meaning. And it always has to do with some type of act of love or act of redemption and caring for one another and just compassion for human beings. And then we satisfy their need to have the happy Christmas memories of Santa, Frosty, and Rudolph, and we bring those characters out in costume, and they always they end the show, and it's always a terrific thing for the kids. We also bring up in the midst of the proceeding a young member of the audience, and that kid, boy or girl, comes up and directs the group and the entire audience. I mean, so that's almost 2,000 people at once. That's really a thrill for these kids. And they conduct 2 verses of Joy to the World. And it's just a very special time for them. And they see, the actors that are on stage are actually younger actors. So they see their peers doing something, and so they participate in it, on that level as well. We're all family. I mean, and I view family in a very cosmic form, and that there's certainly the nuclear version, that has your parents and your brothers and sisters and extended family, that's all, as my grandmother would say, your blood kin. I mean, she was very Southern, but I don't know where this concept came from, but I mean, I almost treat everybody I meet as just a part of my extended family, because we're all part of that human race. I mean, whether we speak the same language or dress the same way, it makes no difference. We're just all part of a larger family. And of course, in the military, there's a strong sense of and I'm going to use the word, I don't mean this in the sexist way, of brotherhood. So that you're all together, and you all look out for each other. I mean, it's a strong ethic that's instilled in you, from day one in the military. Because you even have, for example, a battle buddy. I mean, that's the one person that the two of you really look out for each other. But then it extends out from there. So I mean, these these days, I mean, these young men and women who are serving the country, who are either here or somewhere else, whether they're overseas serving in you know, one of our theaters of war at this point, whether it's Afghanistan or even, you know, pulling out of Iraq, or in one of our bases around the world. I mean, they're part of our extended family too, and you know, we need to remember them. And I have to tell you, I saw the most wonderful thing on Monday at the airport, and this is down in Florida. There were a couple soldiers who came in to this transportation bus that was taking us from the plane back to the terminal. And you know, when they got on that bus, the bus was full. When they got on that bus, everyone who was in a seat stood up and offered them a seat. I mean, and these, it was very touching. And the concept of world peace, and peace for all mankind, humankind. I mean, that's one of the nobler things that happens this time of year, and that certainly transcends and is prevalent in all religion. I mean, it's not just a Christian concept, you know, of peace. You know, peace exists in all religion, and that, you know, concept. I mean, the reality of it. I mean, of course, we don't not only we don't live it necessarily, but I mean, the striving for that peace is really important, and that's what I think what transcends, you know, all the religions, and what makes this particular time so special.